What's going on, guys? If you're new here to the channel, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and enable notifications. That way you never miss out on any of the Naruto lore conversations that we have from the 1st of the month all the way up to the 14th of the month. So with that being said, I'm going to give you guys my newest installment of the Sasuke Jinraiden series. So for those of you guys who stumbled across this video by accident and you have no idea what Sasuke Jinraiden is, go to the homepage of the Naruto Explained YouTube channel, scroll down to the Naruto novel section and look for the playlist titled Sasuke Jinraiden. So with that being said, if you're still here, I'm assuming you guys are all caught up with the story at this point, and I'm not going to waste any time with the intro. So getting right into it. So in this installment of Sasuke Jinraiden, we have a huge moment where Sasuke finds out a little bit about Itachi's secret, and he finally starts putting the pieces together and realizes that Itachi's illness was even more critical than he had ever imagined. And just from the small bits of information that quote unquote Madara Uchiha gave him, who Sasuke doesn't know is actually Obito Uchiha, Sasuke is replaying the battle with Itachi in his head. He's also looking at the last possessions of Itachi Uchiha. In this case, it's a small note that has Itachi's handwriting on it that is a prescription for the medicine that Itachi was taking, as well as where to actually find everything. And Sasuke, upon doing some investigation on where the village is located, he has a little bit of information on the village. Sasuke comes to the conclusion that if Obito's words were true, Itachi was even more sick than anybody had realized. And he makes his mind up that if he gets to that village and he finds out that everything that Obito told him was a half-truth, or it wasn't exactly the full truth about Itachi, Sasuke's fully prepared to choose violence at this point. So what Sasuke does in this time right here is he looks over at the note and he considers all of the options. Is this potentially something that the Sharingan that Obito had was able to copy Itachi's handwriting, which is something that the Sharingan can do, which is mimic handwriting? So he weighs that possibility. However, it's the small things in the note that really gives it away. The small things like the fact that Sasuke is able to recognize the handwriting. He sees the number 7 on the back of the note, and the first thing that goes into Sasuke's mind is this potentially, how many days left to live did Itachi have for this? And we get some backstory on the village that Itachi was going to in order to get this medicine and what made that village so desperate. And Sasuke for a moment wonders, is this potentially something that the granny cat who ran the shop that supplied the Uchiha clan couldn't actually give to Itachi? Is this a illness that goes beyond even that of the Uchiha clan? And that's very interesting because it kind of goes back to a theory that myself and a few people have, that because of how the Uchiha clan's ocular powers work and the circumstances under which Itachi had to massacre the clan, that only made his illness even worse. But we're going to get more concrete evidence that supports this later on in this novel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to begin reading the information that we have from the light novel, and then I'm going to come back to you guys with my thoughts. And this scene here is going to take us all the way to the end of chapter 1 of the novel. So with the scene and the context finally being set is here, I'm going to begin quoting. Anyway, for the time being, the most important thing is to treat your wounds, Madara said. Before leaving, Madara gave me a piece of paper. It belonged to Itachi. It was a request for medicine. Some digits were written onto it, and below those were a strange wording. The recipient matched the name Itachi Uchiha, while the collection day dated back to a long time before. Then there was a seal affixed to it, but I had no clue how to read those characters. This isn't from Granny Cat's shop, I said out loud. Granny Cat was the owner of the supply shop located near the ruins of the Sora district, and she also sold medicines. The Uchiha clan had always turned to her for supplying of weapons and medicines. The incomprehensible name could instead pertain to a new shop of which Itachi had become a customer since he had become a missing nin, in order to not leave any trace. I looked at the eye drops flask and I noticed the seal on it was the same. There was an address written on it, the village of the Wolf's Cry. That name sounded familiar to me. If memory didn't fail me, several years before that village had declared itself neutral, I had heard that the village of the Wolf's Cry had invented blue explosive power, and it had become able to defend itself thanks to that. So the shop of which Itachi had become a customer had been there. Especially for you, Sasuke. He chose to die, and it was as a criminal and as a traitor. But despite everything, he died happily. Worn out by disease, he felt his death was forthcoming. but he survived, gorging himself on medicines, Madara had said. Just how much had Itachi's disease worsened? When he had fought against me, were his conditions already desperate? Without noticing, I found myself looking at the back of the paper. My eyes were fixed on the word written in Itachi's handwriting, 7. What did that number mean? More than the meaning it could have, it was a number itself that drew my attention. Thinking about it, it rarely occurred to me to see Itachi's handwriting. Sensing his presence at my side, I spent several time observing that world with a puzzled look. Suddenly, an idea came to my mind. Madara's voice echoed in my head. Worn out by disease, he felt his death was forthcoming, but he survived, gorging himself on medicines. Madara had said, by going in that strangely named place, I would probably discover something about Itachi's disease. If it wasn't deadly in the end, it meant that Madara had lied, and that even if he didn't know a thing about him, he had glorified his death with all these nice speeches just to bring me to his side. If the disease that afflicted him had really been terminal instead, then those words had some truth to them. I laid down on the straw mat and I closed my eyes. I felt a sense of numbness. My thoughts started to get more and more confused and disappeared like smoke. Tiredness had seeped down into my bones. I needed to rest, just a little bit of rest. I fell asleep again, but I didn't have a dream this time. End quote. So this right here, this is interesting because Sasuke has now hit a huge turning point. So even though he's flirted with the idea of potentially joining Madara, and even after his subconscious is at war with itself, part of him is telling him you cannot trust Madara, you cannot listen to this man's words. Is this even the real Madara Uchiha? Do you really want to join the Akatsuki? The other side of him is also looking at it saying, I need to make Konoha pay. And as Sasuke is grappling with all of this information, Sasuke feels the presence of Itachi right there by his side, and as he looks over to his left, as he's looking, he's staring off into the space, and he's staring thinking that Itachi is there. Because of that connection, it's almost like Itachi is reaching out to him from beyond the grave. But what should stand out also is the fact that Sasuke, as he's putting the pieces together, saying, well, it is possible Itachi was a missing ninja. He wouldn't have gone to the cat lady's shop, so the people in Konoha would have known about that shop, and so Itachi wouldn't have gone there. And the other thing about it is the idea of going to a faraway land in order to get these medicines is not something that's crazy, because Itachi was a missing ninja. And from the Akatsuki Hiden novel, which I am going to cover later on in this year, in that novel, we know that Itachi, traveling alongside Kisame, it really took a toll on him. There are moments where he was really thinking about Sasuke, and there are moments where you can look at it and you can see that Itachi's health isn't necessarily in the best shape during that time. So I do like that little bit of connective tissue that you see here, but what I also like is the fact that Sasuke doesn't see it as something that's crazy, but he still isn't sure. Can he truly trust quote unquote Madara Uchiha? And what I like about this is the fact that as he's thinking about everything, he's replaying Obito's words in his head about Itachi's illness, about how it was ravaging his body, about the fact that he needs medicines. And Sasuke's like, okay, this could be fake. This man probably could have copied the handwriting, but this looks so much like Itachi's handwriting. The only way I'll know for certain is if I go to this village myself, I start asking questions, because the thing about Sasuke is that he's not going to accept the information that you give him at face value. Sasuke is always going to look. He's always going to question, poke, and prod. A great example of this is how after the confrontation with Kabuto during the 4th Great Ninja War, and after Itachi shows him all these memories via Genjutsu and he tells him that he will always love him, the one thing that Sasuke does is he's in a situation where he's not sure which path he should take, and then when presented with new information that there's a way to revive the dead Hokages via Edo Tensei, the thing that Sasuke does is he revives Orochimaru, he goes to Konoha, and he speaks with the Hokages, he listens to their story, and then he formulates his own opinion. And throughout the battles that follow after the fact, Sasuke was continuing to just update his stance, and he was going further and further into the darkness. Well, you're seeing a similar thing here, to where he's moving from that center side to where he could sway one way or the other. He could destroy Konoha, or he could return to Konoha and be a hero. He could live out the life that Itachi wanted for him, but he needs to know for certain what exactly happened. And what I like here is that instead of taking Obito's words at face value. He says, if this guy's really Madara Uchiha and everything he's told me is true, then if I go to this village, I'll be able to get this information. I'll be able to verify it, and I'm absolutely going to destroy Konoha after this. However, on the other side, he's looking at this and he's saying, if I go to this village and I find out that nobody knew who Itachi was and that all of this was a lie, then I know for certain that this Madara Uchiha guy was just filling my head with glorified lies about Itachi, and everything he told me was a lie. He was just trying to get me to ally with him. So this is a very interesting time for Sasuke right here. And the other thing you have to kind of keep in mind is that Sasuke is in a situation where his mind is repeatedly shattering. And every time it looks like he's gotten in a situation where he's begun to heal mentally, he's presented with new information that sends him right back to the brink. So that's what I love right here. I love the fact that we're continuing to see more of the emotional turmoil that is on Sasuke Uchiha. And that's one of the things I do like about this novel in comparison to the dozens of other Naruto novels. There's roughly about 30 of them. The fact is that this novel is written in first person, so we really get Sasuke's deepest and darkest desires. We get his deepest and darkest fears. We really get to get in a very intimate setting with the character. However, when you're reading stories like this, the other thing you have to kind of keep in mind is that you do have room for the unreliable narrator, because the person speaking in first person, in this case Sasuke, everything is from his perspective. So you can't always take everything he's saying at face value, because it's like when you go to court and the different witnesses give their testimony and they testify in front of the grand jury or in front of the jury and the judge, however they do it. You always have to look at it and say, what's the other perspective? Who else saw this scene? You have to take all the eyewitness accounts and then you have to match it up, and somewhere in there you find the truth. And so that's why I like here. So we as the audience, we know that Sasuke's in a dangerous place, and we know that Sasuke's in a situation where he's gonna learn some uncomfortable truths about his brother. And that's what I do like about the upcoming videos that we have. We're gonna get a very solid answer about how bad the medicines were that he was taking, because this is absolutely insane. You're gonna look at the Sasuke versus Itachi battle a lot differently. So my question to you guys is, how do you feel about Sasuke not only questioning Obito here and saying, well, Itachi has these medicines, let me go here and verify this myself? And then the second question I have for you is, what do you think about Sasuke's mental mind state continuing to fluctuate between wanting to destroy Konoha and wanting to not believe Obito? And what did you think about that scene where Sasuke feels the presence of Itachi weighing down on him as he's considering what to do with the note that's presented to him? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Have an awesome day, guys.